bones don't survive very well in Irish landscape, especially up here. This would have been all covered by black and peat after the monument, but it's the after the black and peat burns up the bones. Very few bones in here, but the ones that have produced bones, there's up to about 30-40 individuals. So it's a place, you know, where community buried, but it's probably only the upper class, you know, the elite. The ordinary people didn't get their bones in here. Now, at that time, they practiced both what we call inhumation. The bodies were buried intact. They also practiced after the death, they would have cut the bodies up and brought the bones here too, or they cremated them. You had the three sort of different types here. Very sadly, we've got no bone from here, but recently in that great program we had of trying to date these, there was a couple of animal bones found here during excavation. They seemed as if they're in context with the monument. There was a femur of a cow and there was a goat bone, but then they dated to quite recently, to 12th, 13th century, so that was a bit disappointing, you know. But that was a feature. A lot of the animal bones that are found and were dated were of that period. It looks as if later on, when this thing was open, animals would wander in here and die. Find their bones, like the way you see sheep doing today. So if you come here and explain a bit more. Now you're entering a holy place of its time, so no bad language or anything. You know?
Don't know any bad words.
Bit of reverence for you. We found the number keeps changing, but as far as I know, the latest head count in Ireland is about 428. Used to be, when I was a student, it was 394 or something. But we'll keep reinterpreting older sites and realise they're the court tomb. Quite often the court has disappeared. There's only a few stones left. But then if we excavate, we can find the circus of the stones, so we can define it as a court tomb. So the vast majority of them, technical term is running back here is what we call a gallery, and the vast majority of the galleries have two chambers, and this is the entrance. The first chamber, then beyond is a second chamber. A few of three and a very small number of four, but this would be the average two chambers. So the bones would be brought in here. We assume in a way that the whole body was not brought in there, but the jury still lied on it, but it looks as if they defleshed the bones and then brought them in here. Which is quite an efficient method of respecting the dead. But once built, then it was a place of reverence right up until today. Like, we come here to look at this and be impressed. For the next 2,000 years at least, this was used as a holy place, for a place of ritual. So when this was first described, which is the 1830s in the Arnold Sevier memoirs, if you know that great sort of parochial survey of all the parishes, the farmer here, Mark, can you remember his name? It wasn't Michael Downey. Well, it'll come to me. It wasn't Quig. Anyway, he discovered in the tomb a few urns, and they were upside down, and of course at that stage they wouldn't have known what they were, but now we know what they are. They're what we call cinerary urns, and they belong to about 2,000 years later, well, at least 1,500 years later, and they're funerary things too. They belong to a period when only cremation was carried out, and the ashes would have been brought here, and the ashes would be placed, and the urn placed upside down over them. They were lovely big decorated pots, you know, so that demonstrates how this was used in that later period. But this is, again, stress the multi-period site. One off, but this great monument with great effort, and then it was used and used and used. But for a minute or two, we just admire the the achievement. Look at these big stones. Colin and I were discussing just before you came. These are not, we don't think, they are not field stones. They had to be quarried or you know, chipped off these
Like
surrounding outcrops.
Yeah.
If there were natural boulders stuck out of the field, there'd be much more around it. As you see, the lovely flat faces, and this is they're largely basalt. Basalt doesn't really split like that at all. But you can imagine the effort, the community effort went into making this. It's quite immense. You know, it's equivalent to us building our parish churches, except without all the, you know, equipment we have or have had. Now, the other thing you have to imagine, it's lost one of its most defining qualities. Is the whole thing, this would have always been open, but the whole thing here would have been covered by what we call a cairn of stones, which would have been higher than me. And over the years, those stones have been robbed out, etc. They would have gone to make roads, build the local walls, etc. Now, in most of the courtrooms, the cairn is totally gone. So we're lucky that so much of it survives. But we'll walk around the perimeter here, and then you can